A peaceful city will be stable, it will not be engaged in violence, and it will have developed an infrastructure that promotes quality of life for its inhabitants. A caring community will rid itself of neglect and malnutrition and bad health service. Here is the beginning of a program for social living. And it is recommended to us on this Easter Sunday, in which we celebrate new creation and life and the defeat of death. And so could it be that we are being called upon to participate in making that new creation a reality and ensuring peace in our own city? Well, let's explore a little further. In verses 21 and 22, Isaiah advocates for economic stability and respecting property and labor. In a peaceful society, there need be no fear for loss of the results of work for human rights. Well, how would one lose one's work or property? Well, maybe through foreign invasion or internal confiscation, maybe by one's own government. So Isaiah envisions a city in which neither will happen. So if those of you who supported the recent health care bill were excited by what Isaiah said in verse 20, verses 21 and 22 might give some comfort to the fears of those who opposed it, fearing governmental overreach. The peaceful city in which God reigns is one where government does not burden your labor, but it is also a society where we agree together to provide access of health care to one another in order to care for the least of us. So if America wants to find a middle ground in this debate, a way to end the uncivil rhetoric, I suggest they start with Isaiah 65. The final practical wisdom of this poet is in verse 23. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they shall breed offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Well, this verse reminds us of Genesis, where children and descendants are a sign of blessing from God. The peaceful city will have cast off the curse of Genesis and become a life-affirming place. Now, it's been 5 years since we had our worship series on Genesis, so you might have forgotten what we studied at the time. But we concluded at the end of that the general theme of the book of Genesis is that one will not receive blessing unless one is actively engaged in blessing others. And that, of course, becomes a dominant spiritual message in our scriptural tradition. Children, of course, are always the most at-risk members of a society. So a society that cares deeply for children and works to ensure that their life will be one of blessing is good and just, and Isaiah is saying, a peaceful society. Well, what does this reflection on the poetry and practical wisdom of Isaiah have to do with Easter Sunday? Well, the text is signed by the lectionary, and I hadn't preached on it before. But what do infant mortality rates and protecting property rights have to do with the resurrection of Jesus from the dead? Because if we are Easter people, then we will be glad and rejoice forever in what God is creating. We will turn our faith into witness and courageous action, proclaiming that God's vision for humanity is not an idle tale, but is itself a joy, and its people a delight. On Easter Sunday, we celebrate new life, new creation, and the defeat of death. This day, we are being called upon to participate in the formation of that new creation, and ourselves to work for peace in our own city. And so I leave you with this question. What does your Easter Sunday faith change about your work on Monday, your relationships on Tuesday, your citizenship on Wednesday, your nutrition on Thursday, how you play on Friday, how you shop on Saturday? Christ is risen. Earth and heaven nevermore shall be the same. Break the bread of new creation where the world is still in pain. Tell its grim demonic chorus, Christ is risen. Get you gone! God the first and last is with us. Sing Hosanna, everyone. And now we will join in singing that hymn. And in the final verse, when we get to that line, we are to shout to the demonic force that Christ is risen, get you gone. Some years you do not shout. This year I want you to shout.